The San Diego Padres' nightmare circus clown show continues after inconsistent performances from the offense this weekend, raising the question of whether or not this team is truly doomed. Ryan Weathers has a really bad start, but we did get some nice Tatis stuff. He is back, better than ever, dare I say. All that and more, you know what you're listening to, so let's get started.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, June 5th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javapeno, and that's Javiipeno, or at LO_Padres if you want tweets about only the Padres and not whatever is going on in my mind on my personal account. Follow both, though. I'd greatly appreciate it. Or follow the YouTube, Locked On Padres on YouTube. You'll find it. Hopefully we'll crack the 1,000 subscriber mark soon. I think we're almost at 900, so that would be really cool. So shouts to all the Friar Faithful who have tuned in and see Pac-Man and whatever outfit I'm wearing and my clown hat that I've been wearing for, I think, the last 3 weeks, because that's how much of a clown show the Padres have been for so long, right? Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, ladies and gentlemen. And the same is with your vehicle. That's right. So unlike the Padres, who seem to not have every piece on the same page working for you, well, eBay Motors is going to be at least give you the right tools to be able to do that. For parts that fit, you can head to eBay Motors and look for the little green check when you enter their service, and it tells you what parts work and whatnot. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. But remember, Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Today's episode, guys, we are talking about this past weekend of games. I'm excited for this episode, to be quite honest with you. That sounds weird. It does. But I'm a weird lad. And this is a weird team. But not weird in a good way. I think I'm occasionally weird in a good way. Occasionally. I give myself 5% of the time. The Padres are weird in a good way about 0% of the time. Zero. None. Nada. Nothing fun about them. No, we don't even have a fun Alfaro thing going on this year. Well, we might with Gary Sanchez. But regardless, guys, we're going to talk about the games. I want to start with yesterday's, because yesterday's was really bad. And one of the things that came out that also AJ Cassavell was reporting and Bob Melvin talked about it as well is just the inconsistency of the last week of the Padres. Don't get me wrong, they've been horrid all year, but just to illustrate, they scored 10 runs against the Marlins on Thursday, then only 1 against the Cubs, then 6 against the Cubs on Saturday, then 1 yesterday against the Cubs. The offense has always been terrible, but it's just funny. And if you want to go even before that first Marlins game that I mentioned, the actual first game on Tuesday, they scored 9 runs, then after that 1, and then, like I said, that after that they scored 10, then 1, then 6, then 1. This up and down nonsense is insane. Right? And look, this has been the case all year. You could, if you want to look at it on the bright side, say, well, at least they are having those big explosion, offensive games. It needs to be more consistent, but at least it's hey, this is a sign that the offense might be turning things around. I, for the most part, choose not to believe that. But that wasn't necessarily the story yesterday. So let's talk about the story for yesterday first, which was Ryan Weathers getting absolutely torched. Talked about on the show, he's basically just a 5-starter, hasn't shown me anything more. I know people got excited by his new kind of pitching form and some mechanical changes that he made on video in spring training. I still think he's mostly the same guy that he was in 2021, and that means that his fastball isn't all that accurate. Whatever he was able to actually locate it correctly, batters located it by putting it in the bleachers. In this game, just not the best showing from our guy. And the question now is, is he going to be, demoted? Is he going to be sent down again? I don't know. I think that does depend on what happens with Seth Lugo. I think that depends on if they want to bring Nick Martinez out of the bullpen into the starting pitching role, because it's not like Martinez has been shown to be that effective as a starter. He seems to be better than this. Ryan Weathers now with an ERA above 5. But it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's worth yelling at Weathers too much because he hasn't been the problem with this team all season. In fact, none of the starting pitching has been a problem all season. And until Lugo gets back, I think it's worth tabling that question. But Ryan Weathers might just be a bullpen guy. That might be his destiny. And that's not terrible because I do think the kid has talent. I think he's got a game face to him, which I like. But you just see that fastball gets absolutely lit up sometimes. Like Chris Paddock levels, for those who remember. I say those who remember, like Chris Paddock played for the team in 1987. But you get my point, right? Like his fastball is just not good enough. It just doesn't play. It seems in this sort of current league landscape. And he got absolutely torched. 1 2/3 innings, 4 earned runs, 5 total, but 4 earned on 7 hits. Barely last out of the game. And then Dylan Carlton. I'm sorry. I got him confused with the guy on the Cardinals, Dylan Carlson. Drew Carlton comes in 3 1/3, gives up 2 earned runs. Not the worst in the world, and he's actually, in the very few appearances that he's made, been pretty okay. The Padres pitching has been fine. Let's be clear. I know they gave up 7 yesterday, but the pitching has not been a problem. They've gotten a lot out of the back end of the rotation, which was the fear of this team heading into the year, right? The fear was, wow, you had to sign Wacha right at the end of spring training in order to fill out that last spot. You're counting on Lugo, who is a starting pitcher, to convert to a relief pitcher, and then you've got Nick Martinez, who is a solid player, but he's better as a relief pitcher. So there was a lot of questions there. On top of there being like, hey, is Blake Snell going to be able to? Is Darvish going to be able to stay healthy? There were a lot of questions, and Musgrove, Darvish had an excellent game that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But that hasn't been the issue. And Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha have been probably the big reasons for that. Lugo's been out for a while. We don't know exactly when he's going to get back, but Lugo has performed exceptionally well for what we kind of expected and what was his role and what was kind of what we needed him to do. He's been exceptional. And same thing goes for Michael Wacha, who literally was just named the pitcher of the month. Shout out to that graphic on ESPN that showed all the former Red Sox players like JD Martinez doing well, Michael Wacha doing well. I think Eovaldi, who was a player that I wanted this past offseason that I was interested in. Or was I? I forgot. I think I grouped everybody the same. That's why I said, I get one of these guys. I don't know which one, but it'll be fun. Eovaldi's like the leader, or like he's like a top 7 Cy Young candidate at this rate, something like that. So that's been really fun. But other than that, really not much to report from this game in terms of things from the Padres. Soto has a ground out, which allows Tatis to score, which is the only thing they get here. But Yan Gomes hits a home run. It's never a good sign when Yan Gomes, who hasn't really been a good offensive catcher in forever, is able to hit a home run off you. Trey Mancini does as well. And then Miguel Amaya kind of puts the game away for good with a 2-run shot in the top of the 3rd inning. Overall in this game, you get, unfortunately, a bad game from Ha-Seong Kim. Feels like his first bad game in a while. 0-4 with 2 strikeouts. Tatis, though, 2 for 4. Very nice. Batting average going up. We're going to talk about him in the next segment because I sort of told you, and everyone was kind of seeing it coming. But Manny Machado, who, by the way, just came off the IL. Congrats. Really cool. He had 1 hit this weekend. That was mean. But you get my point. Just not a great game for the Padres and kind of set things off. And the last thing to kind of worth mention and worth talking about was that Juan Soto, after the game, gave this very kind of just dour press conference opinion where he's like, I don't think I'm the guy to respond to that question in response to why the offense hasn't been consistent. I think we have those guys down there. They know better than me. I don't know. I really know what's going on. So that's weird. And this comes on the heels of Tatis saying it feels like we're cursed by the baseball gods or something. So players are clearly aware of how astronomically, colossally bad their offense has been given expectations. This is what should have happened for the 2022 offense. Because the 2022 offense was basically, oh God, I hope Cronenworth is good again. And we have Manny. That's it. Maybe Trent Grisham can bounce back. Like the offense for and Luke Voit, shout out Luke Voit though. No disrespect whatsoever. I love Luke Voit, but that's kind of where we were at last year, right? Where you thought, all right, this is going to be a team that struggles to score. They're going to have to win on defense and pitching, and they did. They scored the minimum amount. They were able to drive guys in. Manny Machado didn't inexplicably, after getting a contract extension, decide to be the worst batting form, like the worst overall hitting skills of his career. And that's what's happened this year, right? So, and he's not the only one, but it's just been Really unfortunate. That's just game one, guys. That's just game one. And we're going to continue talking because, oh boy, from here on out, not going to be straightforward recaps as much, but we got a lot to talk about for sure. But before we talk about all that stuff, ladies and gentlemen, got to talk to you about something real juicy and fun, and that is eBay Motors. Ladies and gentlemen, I talked about them at the top of the show, but just to emphasize, for a championship team, every part must fit. It must. You need it. You need it. You need all your role players, all your relievers and everything. Well, the same thing goes for a good vehicle, a good transportation vehicle, your car. You need all the right tools. You need all the right parts. I don't know what those parts are necessarily, but eBay Motors does know. They help you out. The next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors, guys. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. You just add your ride to the little My Garage kind of section, and it gives you like this sort of green check thing that'll tell you it fits. And guess what? If it doesn't fit, you get your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts and the right fit and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's go on and ride. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, and exclusions do apply. But seriously, go check that out. And we're back here, ladies and gentlemen, on the Locked On Padres podcast. The only clown show podcast that you can get every day, Monday through Friday. Really good stuff. Except last week because I was a little sick and it was weird. My stomach nearly imploded. Really weird stuff for your boy last week. It was probably an omen of what was to come. But I want to talk about a little bit of good stuff. Just a little bit. There wasn't much to recap in, unfortunately, Sunday's game. Again, the big story for the Padres this weekend was inconsistency. And the fact that every single time it looks like they're going to break out offensively, they do not, and then they put up a one spot. Yesterday was, I know that there isn't really statistical evidence to back this up, but hear me out, right? Like, I know there isn't statistical evidence to back things up like this, but for me, I do think there is something to be said for your offense. I know the offense should be better than this, and it'd be nice with the $80 bajillion payroll that they'd be able to do this, but you start off in such a hole. I do wonder what that does to guys mentally, where it's like, oh my God, here we go again. We're already down by 6 or something like that. Like, I do wonder that every now and then. I know there's nothing to back that up, but given where the state of this team has been this season, I can feel like that one is a little bit less about that. It feels more like, oh my gosh, we're already down, and I don't feel like we're going to be able to score this much because of how we've been going, so it affects your confidence a little bit. That's just me, but even nonetheless, the overall factor of inconsistent offense remains the same. But that was not the case. Again, inconsistent is inspiring that they actually scored some this weekend, and it was great. Saturday was a fantastic game for the Padres. They won 6-0. The dream was seen on Saturday. And what I mean by that is we got good defensive plays. There was an incredible play in the hole from Ha-Seong, who very well might win himself a Gold Glove this year. I haven't compared him to the rest of the second baseman in the National League, but I will in a little bit. Maybe Nico Horner might be someone up there who we're playing against. I don't know. I can't think of any second baseman off the top of my head that might be doing well as well as Ha-Seong, but he makes an incredible play in this one. Manny Machado almost makes a great play. He goes for a ball that actually hits starter Darvish, and it bounces off his leg. Thankfully, he's okay. Don't worry, he's okay. But Manny at least makes the attempt. Cronenworth unable to hold on to it. It would have been a tough scoop for him, but the fact that Manny even made that a play was impressive. Great defense from the Padres. And then you get a great starting pitching performance from Darvish. Ace-level stuff. He's back. Talked about in the Yankees game. Look, he got lit up, and it happens every now and then. You know what I mean? Like, his ERA got inflated. I know it's a 4.10 right now, but when you look at his last bunch of starts, he's still been pretty good. He hasn't delivered as many dynamite performances as he has last year. I still think he's kind of getting into the swing of things. And last year, it's important to note that he did, have a spike in his strikeout rate, started making more bats miss as the season went on. Not a Blake Snell level of you're going to be terrible until the second half, but like he wasn't fully activated, it felt like last year, until the second half, or at least a little bit later. He's figured out things as seasons went on. But in this game, 7 innings, only 2 hits, no walks, no runs, Or I'm sorry, 1 walk, no runs though, and 9 Ks. So he was awesome. Really great bounce back performance from Darvish. And I want to mention that Gary Sanchez was the catcher for this game, and I know other people pointed this out. Gary, by the way, 1 for 3 in this one with a walk. Shouts to Gary Sanchez, who really has shown that he can make errors and he can be really weird, and you're wondering why the heck, how this guy even, like, who taught him how to play catcher, like the position. Not the hit, but the position. It's very odd sometimes, but clearly an upgrade over what the Padres have been fielding this year with Luis Campusano, albeit an inconsistent playing time, with Brett Sullivan, and certainly Austin Nola, who I'm going to talk about in a second. But Gary catching this game from Darvish, and I think I saw some other people point this out, that is even more of a strike against Austin Nola, who, by the way, is not a good defensive catcher, which has driven me insane. This is not Austin Hedges. Austin Hedges, yes, he would drive Padres fans insane with how bad his batting was, but he was good defensively. So there was a reason why they were like, all right, we're going to start him. Like, I got it. I really did. I was one of those people who was like, I want to give Mejia like a week or two, like just give him a chance. But also I wasn't like wild about it because it's not like Francisco Mejia had shown anything before then. But again, I would have rather had that platoon of catchers than Austin Nola. I'll take it any second because Austin Nola isn't good at anything. Doesn't hit the ball hard. The only thing he's good at is that when he swings the bat, it usually makes contact with the ball. He's able to have the bat to ball, but it doesn't go anywhere, and he doesn't hit it hard, and it's just maddening, and he doesn't throw runners out. He is not a good pitch framer. He's just not good. He has balls past him pretty, not frequently, but he has mistakes like that, so I don't know why. And the fact that he got a start the next day after this is hilarious, by the way, and just shows you this weird dedication that the Padres have to Austin Nola. Again, I call him a Nepo baby because of his brother Aaron Nola. I almost stand by it. It's mean, but I almost stand by it. Not literally, obviously that's not it, but it's just very like what are we doing? Why does this guy keep getting consistent playing time? Gets more consistent playing time than Campusano, who's like 10 years old. Just doesn't make any sense. Oh, well, Campusano can't pitch frame. Neither can Nola. So just give Campusano a chance. It doesn't make any sense. I can't wait until Campusano leaves and then becomes like an average catcher somewhere. And then we're just like, yeah, why did we give a chance? Anyway, enough of that though, because in this game, the other big story is the offense. And the big guy here, I mean, shouts to Brandon Dixon, who gets 1 RBI. And shouts to Ha-Seong Kim, 2 for 2 with a double and a walk and a stolen base. Really good stuff. The stolen base was awesome, by the way, from Ha-Seong Kim. He steals even with the pitcher kind of stepping off. Didn't matter. He got such a great head start that he was able to steal second. Love Ha-Seong Kim, and I love hearing the fans cheer his name every time he's up. One of the few bright spots of the team this year. But of course, I'm only kidding. That was not the story of the offense, guys. The big one was the Nando making an appearance. It'd been a while. He's had some good games this year, don't get me wrong, but this was like the oh my gosh, it's Tatis, Jason Bourne meme. 2 for 4 in this game, or I'm sorry, 2 for 5 in this game, 4 RBIs thanks to 2 smasheroo home runs. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. And talked about it last week. His overall slash line has improved to about where I think it's going to be for a little bit. At least for a little bit. 263, 311, 509. The slugging's through the roof. He hits extra base hits. He's got the speed. He has the defense, which is why Tatis could very well, if he keeps up this thing, because of his defense, could net himself a top 5 MVP finish. He could be up there because, let's say, Ronald Acuna of the Braves, excellent player and probably is still the front runner for the MVP of the National League right now and would still earn my vote. But if you want to be technical, it's possible that because Acuna isn't a great defender, he's actually quite poor in the outfield, then it's possible that Tatis could sneak in there given how good his defense has been this year. And could vault over teammate Juan Soto, who's been a better batter, but Tatis has the defense. So for 2 ways, he's been great. We'll see, though. We'll see. But I said it last week, BABIP didn't match. Batting average on balls in play suggested he was getting unlucky. He had a 250 BABIP, which is much lower than his plus 300, above 310 batting average on balls in play lifetime. He's got speed, so it suggested the balls just aren't getting out of the infield, unfortunately. He is putting it in play. The only reason that I don't think his 380 OBP or whatever he had a few years ago, I'm actually looking at it right now, he's had a 360 or so lifetime average OBP. I don't know if that's coming yet because he is pressing and he is whiffing and he is swinging at a whole lot more pitches. So it's okay because he is slugging the ball super hard and playing great defense. It's not that big of a deal. But if you're wondering why he doesn't have the same on-base percentage levels, that's why he's not walking enough. And I don't know if that'll come immediately. I haven't seen any signs that suggest that part of his game will come to play. It's okay. Again, it's okay. He still might be like a 5-win player at this rate or even higher with how he's been playing on defense. But just wanted to point it out until I see some changes with his approach at the plate. He's been a very aggressive player. It's working because he's so talented, but I would keep an eye on that it's possible he might go on a little bit of a lull at some point. I think he's entered the hot phase of his hitting streak where he's going to hit for batting average. He's going to get on base and all that. But don't be surprised if in a few weeks, if he's still swinging so aggressively, especially as they face some better pitchers. They've got Seattle upcoming this week, so that'll be tomorrow actually. Whether they run into George Kirby or whoever, Luis Castillo, that could become a problem for him, but we'll see, ladies and gentlemen. Overall, great game for the Padres. You got the big Tatis game, you got great defense from Ha-Seong Kim, and you got an elite pitching performance from Yu Darvish. That was the frame, that was the best case scenario type of game for the Padres that somehow basically has only happened like once or twice this year, and this is one of them. But hey, it happens. Before we talk about the last game and kind of conclude my overall thoughts on this show, guys, let me take a second to talk to you about something important. Very important, guys. Very important. No jokes will be coming from your boy on this one. Let me tell you. It's important that you take some time to spend on yourself in a given week, whatever week it is, whatever time it is, versus, how much you give other people, right? Your time. And it's important to take care of your mental health. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about yourself, but you need to do that because therapy, it's been proven that it's needed. We're learning a lot about it. And therapy can give you the tools you need to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. I benefited from therapy myself, and the folks over at BetterHelp are great, and they're going to help you out with that as well. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge, which is great. And have no fear. In my experience, it's totally okay to switch therapists. That's not like a mean thing to do. You got to find the right person that works for you. And BetterHelp can do that, again, with no additional charge. So find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. And we're back, everybody, here in the waning moments of this Locked On Padres podcast. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about the last game. Unfortunately, ending on a sad note. Or I'm sorry. Did I? No. Yeah, okay, one last game. The Padres lose this one 2-1. Again, inconsistent offense. Jameson Taillon shuts down the team. Jameson Taillon, by the way, heading into this game, an 8.4 ERA. And the Padres are able to muster, let's see here, they are able to muster only 4 hits and 1 earned run. Xander Bogaerts grounds into a double play in this game that kind of killed the team's offensive momentum. Really rough. I should also mention there was a double play, or not a double play, but at second base. I think it was in this game. No, it was the grounded double play. I don't remember exactly, but Bogaerts grounds into a double play in this game. And I want to talk about Bogaerts for a second, just in the sense that he has this wrist issue that has flared up, reportedly one that he's been dealing since last season, and something that the team apparently knew about, but we're still down to give him an 11-year deal, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. But he talked about how he's kind of tried to play through it. You can see on his swings that he grimaces through some of them. I don't know what the Padres are doing. He should be on the IL, or at the minimum be given a considerable amount of days off to address this, especially if it's something that has flared up since last season. That's a little worrisome, for sure. Xander's still pretty solid. I still like him, but it does explain this wrist issue, why his OPS has gone down from like 830 to 722 this month, or over the last month, I should say. it explains it, right? That's is why he struggled so much. That's why he doesn't look great at the plate, and you can see it even when he hasn't grimaced. It looks like he doesn't have a follow through, right? And that's probably proves gives credence to why when you look up his hard hit data, even in the first month, why it wasn't always there. He'd been getting by just incredible plate discipline and choosing the right pitches and walking and all that stuff and speed, but he just looks off and he's clearly hurt. So I hope that the team puts him on the IL, and I know that does raise the issue where it's like, oh well, they don't have any backups, right? The last thing they can have is be worrying about who's gonna take over shortstop. Well, too bad. You put yourself in this scenario when you didn't have any sort of depth whatsoever. Also in this game, Tatis goes 1 for 4. Soto goes 0 for 3 with 2 Ks. He does draw a walk. Machado, there was actually a funny part in this game at the end of the game when Machado chased a pitch way outside the zone, low and away outside. And my mom, while she was watching, she's like, well, Manny's back, like very like sarcastically. And it made me laugh and cackle like hilariously because it's true. Manny's back, and I thought it was very funny seeing, and granted, this was just Padres Twitter, how much everyone was like, God, I miss Manny. And my thing is like, I miss him too, but let's not act like he was great. He was actually quite abhorrent the first month of the season that he was playing. He basically only had the 2 home run game in Mexico City, and other than that, he hasn't really been doing much. He's been terrible. Outright terrible, not hitting the ball hard, not showing plate discipline. It's been awful for Manny. So I just thought it was funny that everyone was like, as if let's say if Soto got hurt, fingers crossed, nothing, hopefully nothing, right? But if he got hurt and everyone was like, oh man, I miss him. No, that hasn't been the case, right? Or even Ha-Seong Kim. Just really bad stuff from the Padres offensively, and Manny Machado really needs to be getting a lot more flack for that, especially given his big extension. Not that should play into why a player deserves more criticism necessarily. I think that's more complicated, but it's just worth pointing out why I think fans, including myself, are so frustrated that it was a contract that I wasn't even calling for the record. I was like, if he walks, he walks. We traded for Soto. Like, you kind of got to figure that out first. But they extended him, and then he immediately is having the worst season of his career. So that's really frustrating beyond belief, right? And it just shows that this front office is just really out of touch and out of sync right now, which we're going to talk about more tomorrow. But in this game, Michael Wacha, he gets taken out early because he had too many pitches. But don't mistake his 4 2/3 for being an awful outing. He was inconsistent, kind of a little bit of a regression to the mean start. Not terrible, but does have 5 walks in this one, 4 2/3, 2 earned runs in this one. He wasn't that bad, though, and I think the Padres were trying to make him go a little bit longer, maybe get him past the 5th inning to conserve the bullpen, which, again, was great. Cosgrove, 2 strikeouts in 1 1/3, no hits, no walks. Steven Wilson, 2 strikeouts in 1 2/3. He was great, only allowed a hit. And then Tim Hill comes in and somewhat shockingly doesn't give up anything. Tim Hill kind of bouncing back a little bit. Love Tim Hill. I love it when he's looking good. Really good specialist type of reliever to have, depending on the matchup. The relief pitching was fine. It's just that the offense once again didn't show up against a guy who had an 8 ERA and a bullpen that isn't necessarily all that good either. But they weren't able to score, and that's the story of the Padres season. It's frustrating. It was a tough weekend. It's just really tough. And I don't know exactly where they go. I really don't. I said it before this weekend's series that they're playing a bunch of somewhat mediocre teams over the next week. I talked about it. You got Miami, who they obviously, that series is over, but I'm just saying, you had Miami, which you won 2 out of 3, which was nice. Although you really would have been nice if you got that sweep and didn't self-combust offensively. Then you have Chicago. Then you have 2 against Seattle, who's been struggling. Then 3 against Colorado. Then 3 against Cleveland. Then you get Tampa, which is a tough one, obviously. Then you get 4 against San Fran, 3 against Washington, blah, 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 blah. And Colorado and Cleveland, by the way, you should be able to do something there because those teams, Colorado, if at Coors Field, the Padres offense doesn't show up, like, I'll turn in my resignation letter myself. Not really. Don't take that. That was a joke for legal purposes. But really bad weekend. And I think that the Soto comments were incredibly important because they illustrate just how lost everything is. I do not think that it's out of the realm of possibility that Bob Melvin gets fired in the middle of the season. I think that would be awful, and I don't think they should do that. I don't think you should ever really do that for any coach in anything. It's very rare that someone's going to take over in the middle of the season and do well. But I think that that's the level of desperation they're at. I mean, they literally had to pick up Gary Sanchez because their catching was so bad. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I want to illustrate my thoughts in full tomorrow. My thoughts in full about the state of the team, what I think is wrong, some narratives that are going to arise from media people who like water carrying for billionaires. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about contracts. I want to talk about Bogarts' deal. I certainly want to talk about Juan Soto's trade and non-deal. I want to talk about all of that. And I want to illustrate that. And I want to talk about organization. There was a really good thread by popular guy on Padres Twitter that I'm a big fan of, that does really good work, that kind of talked about the Athletic piece from 2021, which I wrote an article, by the way, on justbaseball.com, and I ranked it like the third worst and most tragic thing that happened to the 2021 Padres collapse. And I wrote about the Athletic article, which I have a lot of thoughts at because I actually think it's a really interesting, not relic, it's not old, but this really interesting document, dare I say, because it's so interesting to look at it now, because it was troubling then, and I really brought it up, and it was one of the reasons why I was wondering, whether or not AJ Preller would get fired that year. But it's a really interesting thing to read again now. So I highly recommend everyone go check that out at The Athletic. I don't think a lot of people put weight into it. And granted, I made fun of it myself. I didn't make fun of the Preller and the team building thing. I did heavily make fun of the report, the comment that was like, rival executives think they should trade Manny for a Nolan Arenado type package. Because I thought that was hilarious. It's like, of course you want us to give up our best player for a bag of potato chips. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't just say might behoove them to trade him, but for a Nolan, like similar to old Nolan Arenado, it's like, yeah, the thing that didn't help the Rockies at all. Yeah, okay. So that was ridiculous. That part was ridiculous. But the rest of the article, if people didn't trust it, look, these things are important. The Athletic is great. Has a lot of good content. Can be frustrating sometimes, don't get me wrong. As with all journalistic publications, that doesn't mean that you have to boycott them all and be like mad at them and then just listen to some random YouTuber, even like me on YouTube. But I think it's a really interesting read, and I highly recommend everyone go check that out. Yeah, I recommend everyone go check that out. It's really good stuff. I don't know his actual name, but Giannis Antetokounmpo on Twitter put out this thread basically talking about just people who have stayed in the organization, training staff, all that stuff. I'm going to give all my thoughts on that tomorrow or Wednesday. If there's a low chance I might do a crossover with my guy Ty Dane Gonzalez of the Seattle Mariners podcast. If that happens, then that's what we'll do. Otherwise, Wednesday will be the thing. And we'll also do a quick recap of whatever game happens. So tomorrow, recap the last game of this Cubs series very quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on it. And then if it's Wednesday, that I do my big kind of breakdown of the whole organization. Then we'll recap the Mariners and Cubs game in even shorter time, for sure. Might even skip over the Cubs game, depending on how time permits. But yeah, that's the plan for the show, guys. Seemingly a better plan than AJ Preller for this team and management. Seemingly, just me organizing the next two episodes. More clairvoyance and vision and openness to what could happen in the future, apparently, for my next two podcast plans, this front office. So we're going to talk about all of that, guys. Again, don't completely give up. The last thing I'll say is this: electric bullpen, electric starting pitching, electric defense. Not asking for much from the offense, which is why it's so maddening, by the way. But not asking for much. That's how they turn things around. They just have to do a little bit. That's all they have, and they haven't done it, unfortunately. But with that all being said, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, or at LO_Padres, or YouTube if you want to see my hat, me wiggle around my hat, do that. But until next time, whatever you do, stay safe, and of course, stay faithful. My Fire Faithful homies, take care.